like Attila the Hun. I came here to conquer. Lanes bring the beef, I tell them no donker. They wanna play games, I shock them like Blanca. They still rudimentary, I'm tough like Tonka. And let me get this off my chest. I'm hearing going nowhere, so haters take a rest. Ain't nothing handed, just working hard, sweating. You can take that to the bank. I know I did bet.
What's good, everyone? It's your friendly neighborhood Storm, and I am back with another episode of Eye of the Storm. We're going to follow up on our last episode, which was talking about using your resources. The biggest resource that I didn't mention, which, in some cases I feel that it should be obvious, but sometimes we tend to need to tackle the obvious, is time. And we're going to start with a couple quotes that'll make sense once I go into this. The first quote is, "Skill and talent are differentiated by understanding." The next quote is, "No matter how good advice is, a person will only come out of it with what they want." The next quote is, "You're only going to be the exception to the rule when you become the exception." And the last quote is, "A person who looks down on others' accomplishments often are the first to flex their own weird accomplishments." So the reason as to why this subject is going to be such an interesting one is because the discourse right now it's a long time discourse, but given the fact that we are in the information age, it's one that I personally find to be a weird one, which is, oh, well, if I had the same amount of time as you, I would be able to do the same thing. It's like, yes and no. It actually does depend legitimately on your situation. And what I mean by that is, we are in the information age.
Wow.
We don't have to sit there and quote unquote figure it out like we did back in the day. I'm sorry, that's not a flex anymore. It really isn't. It's not a flex to say, man, I spent 4 hours trying to figure this thing out on my own. Nobody cares. It's not a flex. You could have quite literally spent 10 minutes watching a YouTube video, seeing somebody else who had the same concept and say, hey, they did the same thing that I did. Well, thank you. Now I'm going to improve upon it and cut your time significantly less. This is how people who have full-time jobs, who have family responsibilities, who also do things like lift weights, play sports, generally have a social life, do other things, maybe work multiple jobs, can still get in their training time and be better than you and the next guy. And that's actually kind of where some of those quotes come in. The excuse of saying, hey, I have a family, or hey, I have a life, or hey, I get women/men, that excuse is not a flex anymore. I'm sorry, because you can significantly reduce your training time and do whatever you want now. Because if you go in and do things with a purpose now, you don't have to waste as much time. And yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I probably did step on a lot of toes right here, and I probably just killed a lot of arguments, but again, we're in the information age. You have to use your resources wisely. It's just not efficient anymore to do things the way that we did them 20 years ago. This is where the word privilege is not a negative thing. We are privileged now, and it's not a bad thing. We don't have to do things the way that we did them years ago because this is a tried and true method that we have now that has been refined over these past 20 years, and I, for one, don't feel a need to do that, and I'm the old guy. Why would I waste my time? So I feel like that's actually where we need to stop with the nonsense. Other people are, they are the lab monsters and they're doing all of that, but you don't have to be. And you can still be a lab monster but not put in the amount of time. This is where we work together. This is how a community comes together and does things. So just a little bit of food for thought, a little bit of reining the ego in. And interestingly enough, it didn't take that long for me to bring all those quotes together and do that.
Wow.
So I just want you guys to understand time compression and going into things with a purpose. It goes back to what I said. The lab doesn't have to be tedious and long. As long as you go in there with a purpose, you can grind rank, go in there with a purpose. Heck, you can use arcade mode, go in there with a purpose. Just remember, as long as you do things efficiently, you don't need the significant amount of time that you would have needed back when you were a kid to understand things.
Yes!
But that's all I really have to say for now. I don't want to take up too much of your time, as I try not to do. But you know what I always say, be safe, take care of each other, press buttons. Catch you on the flip side, and hey, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm open for discussion.